Hello and welcome to the Hidalgo Show. My name is Rick Tejijo Benya and I am your host. We are working on Chapter 4 today of the book Family Government, which goes into Parental Duties. This book was written in 1847, before the Civil War, and outlines the ideology behind parental government. Already, the writer of this book, the author, is talking about how families have disengaged from the idea of family government. This is a sad indictment on society that we consider one of the freest societies, if not the most free society in the world. If we intend to ever reclaim or restore our free society, we're going to have to get family government down. And understand that with family government in place, limited government over our own family government is possible. But only if we have family government down the way it should be. The rest, right after this. Welcome to the Hidalgo Show, and today we are in the 4th chapter of this book written in 1847. It is page 51 in the book if you're following along with the PDF. On parental duties. There are some things I'm hoping that this covers today. I don't really know what it's covering, to be honest, because in truth, I have not read this. I like to go along with it and comment based on, how it hits me at the time, rather than be practiced and refined and finished. I'd rather be reactionary so that it benefits all of us as we go through it, me included. So, chapter 4, Parental Duties. We shall now contemplate you as parents. See that mother as she presses to her bosom her firstborn. She has just become a mother. How fondly she looks on the little helpless creature that lies in her bosom. What a tide of maternal feeling gushes through all of her soul. In view of the new relations and affections which now spring up around her. Fancy is busy, and hope is buoyant in the mother's heart as she fondly weaves the web of the future. Have you seen that father too, as he looks as he took his firstborn into his arms and gazed upon it with all a father's yearning? Did you see him as he looked fondly upon the wife of his youth, and then upon the precious pledge of their mutual love? It is a hallowed moment, full of sacred and thrilling interest, nor would we interrupt its joyousness, nor cloud the brightness of its anticipations, but we may just recommend to the happy parents to raise a joyful Hosanna to God, and devoutly and earnestly invoke the divine blessing upon this newborn heir of immortality. Right? Heir of immortality. It is our goal for this child to be raised in Christ, to become immortal. It is also our goal for our house to be perpetuated, to be ever so represented through the course of time. So let's continue. Unitedly dedicate your child to Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in solemn prayer, and as early as circumstances will permit it, repeat the dedication in the solemn ordinance of the house of God. Don't know how you guys feel about baby dedications, but I think it has credence in the Word. I think it's something most of my kids have participated in. I think the last one didn't have that opportunity because it's not a custom. We're in the 501c3 that we were a part of here, but we, of course, in our own house, always solemnly dedicate our children to the Lord, making all of creation fully aware what our intent is for our children. So when your child becomes old enough to take notice, it may be of importance for you to observe carefully the development of thought and temper, and commence early and gently but firmly the work of training. Children can often be controlled in their tempers and habits at a very early age by judicious management. And the earlier you lay the foundations of education in the mind and heart of your child, the better, both for yourself and him. All children have not the same disposition, and as the management must to a great extent be regulated by the temperament and predominant characteristics of those to be governed. It is the wisdom of parents to study these early indications with great care, and to conform the system of government to the particular characteristics of each child. Every discreet parent who has to manage half a dozen children, how did they know? It's exactly how many I have. Knows that precisely the same kind of management will not answer for all. And that is an absolute fact, folks. I have a diversity like no other. I mean, and all parents feel that way. So I'm speaking, of course, out of ignorance of everyone else's situation, only to say that I definitely have diversification in my own house. I have temperaments that, take the whole color cycle. I also have obedience that takes the whole color cycle. I've pretty much every area I have somebody who represents it in this house, which does make it difficult to convene a government, but it's a necessity, it's a must. So let's continue. There must be occasional variations to suit peculiar circumstances. The timid must not be controlled precisely as the froward and self-willed are. This is a perfectly plain case, and yet it is feared that the view is not always regarded by parents. It is so much easier to make absolute general rules and to force everything up to obedience by the sternest sort of discipline that it is to make patient explanations and temperate and judicious discriminations. That many, to avoid trouble, ruin their children. Your child is supposed to be old enough to understand your instructions. It is therefore high time that you had settled your system of government. For recollect, there must be system, or there can be no good government. There must be laws, definitely settled and steadily adhered to, or your house will be the scene of wretchedness and confusion. And I gotta say this, this really is the reason why we don't see good government today. Now, if you consider the corporation that's providing government services as a form of government, the reason you see it sway so much and have so little affection towards those who are supposed to rule it, the reason you see all of the vast conspiracies going on in that so-called government is because this must-be system was never adopted in the house. And parents who are not present, parents who are, and there's a variety of reasons why parents would not be present. This is no judgment. It's the way our life is today. It makes it very difficult and really pushes us towards the place where Hillary has often come from in her parenting technique, talking about it requiring a village to raise a child. Well, in a despotic society, absolutely it takes a village. But that is not what we are intending to raise. That's not what we're intending to create here. We're intending to create a republican form of government which starts at its very cornerstone, Jesus Christ. It starts upon his foundation, Yahusha HaMashiach. Starts there. And it grows to every one of us being living stones, built one upon another, in such a way to where we have then a magnificent body, a magnificent specimen. So let's not confuse this, but it is in fact the reason why we see the wretchedness and confusion that we do in society today. Now then, let the father and mother prayerfully and carefully talk over this matter. Settle on your plan of government in view of your child's present and future existence. Now, let me speak directly to those of you that I'm sure, like me, didn't take the time to set up a proper governance at the beginning and had to formulate it as you went, as you came to the understanding that there was going to be some necessity for such a thing. You began to develop it. You began to pull your children out of social normities and bring them back into a place where God would have ultimate dominion in their lives. Let me speak to you for a second, okay? Because you're the normal ones today who decide that the world, I'm not going to be caught dead allowing the world to dictate to my child what is right and what is wrong. You can still settle your plan of government in view of your present and future existence, because you're going to have children You're going to have grandchildren, and your children's children are going to have children. You may be great-grandparents before your time on this earth is done, and you can continue to have influence on the government of your family. Just wanted to bring that forward because I think it's very important. We deal with a lot of people of different ages and varieties and conditions, and we just need to be aware of this. Let's continue. Let there be a mutual understanding and agreement between you so that there may not be subsequently any interference in your administration. Your code of laws must of course at first be short and simple. Pick up your toys, right? Short and simple. And you must take pains to make the child understand, as far as he is capable of doing so, not only the meaning of your laws, but also the reasonableness and propriety of them. To be sure, after you have done all, there will probably be many things, the reason of which this little boy cannot understand, and at this point, he must learn that faith in your wisdom and goodness must produce obedience. Such an important component right there. And I feel that in our society, choosing to allow your children to go into the public full system. Oh, did I say full? Excuse me. Choosing to let them go there. It really puts them into a situation where they must choose whom to obey, because there really is two different worlds. Now, if what they're getting at home is what they're getting in the public full system, that's not a good deal. There's some bad news there, and probably there should be some family government change. Well, let's go on. Your will must be regarded to him as law. Now you understand that's actual maxim of natural law, right? Your will is regarded as law. In fact, if you left a will to someone to perpetuate your house, that will is the law of that relationship. So that is actually a natural law, that your will must be regarded to him as law. And that's something we must enforce as parents. This is absolutely necessary for the well-ordering of your house. But at the same time, it is of great consequence that your commands be wisely adapted to the circumstances of your children. And it is a great point gained if you can persuade them that all is reasonable and right and kind. I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to correct this author, because I agree with this. I disagree with this a little bit. If you persuade your child that all is reasonable, right, and kind, it's going to lead them down roads of socialism, communism. Why? Because not all things are reasonable. Not all things are right or kind. You know, I mean, there comes a time you must draw a line in the sand. Anyway, let's continue. Therefore, take some pains and trouble in explaining matters to them. And if you succeed in showering them with the propriety of one of your rules, it will go very far towards securing obedience to two or three to which they don't well understand. Some parents are too impatient or overbearing, or I almost said the word adolescent here, but I'm going to keep that word because I've seen that. I've seen parents that are so adolescent in the way they handle their children that I can't tell which one's the child. Okay, so I'm going to say it this way. Some parents are too impatient, overbearing, or adolescent to pursue this course. You could also say indulgent. It is easier to lay down the law and to seek to obtain obedience by arbitrary enforcement. Now, whatever you may think or of it at first, at the last you will discover that it was of great importance for you to have secured in the beginning not only the fear but the affectionate confidence and respect of your children. Now, I wanna stop right there for a second. This is a major thing, a major question in the world we live in today. The Psychological Association had the whole field of psychology has taken on this thing of fearing your parents as to mean that your parents are hateful. This is not the case. The fear that's being spoken about here is the same fear that we are to have towards our Lord. You know, the fear of the Lord being the beginning of wisdom, right? This is the kind of fear that we're talking about, the kind of fear that says, if I don't obey the wisdom of my parents, I could end up in that pig pen over there eating slop, right? So we can't allow current psychological understanding to dictate to us this word fear. Let's put it in proper context. We're not talking about fear of some violent repercussion. We're talking about fear in the sense of my soul, okay? My heart, my spirit. But, says a parent, I have tried repeatedly to instruct and explain, and yet the child does not understand. What shall I do next? And here's the author answers. I answer, keep in a good humor, let patience have her perfect work, and make a few more trials. It is no wonder, says the poet Montgomery, that John Wesley was so great a man. He had an extraordinary mother. And he selects in illustration of this remark the following incident. When one said to her, Miss Wesley, how can you tell that dull boy the same 20 things, or the same thing 20 times over? Because, she says, when I have told him 19 times, he forgets it. But when I have told him the 20th time, he will remember. It was an admirable reply, says the author, and indicates with sufficient distinctness one principal cause of the successful family government of that excellent lady. Now, I have heard it said that if you repeat something 7 times, it becomes habit. These are little sayings that we grow up with. And certainly something that you repeat over and over and over again is more destined to stick than something that you've referenced, once or twice. Let your earliest instructions have reference to God as the universal Father of men. Teach your child early to feel that God is his Father. Very important. And claims from him the gratitude and love of a child. And carefully, diligently, and with all simplicity, impress on his mind the great principles of experimental and practical religion. Not exactly sure what he means by experimental, unless he's talking about just the idea of allowing him to walk it out. If that's the case, then I would be in agreement. It's very important to let our children to walk that out. I found that out in one case of my 6. But be very careful to explain and illustrate these matters in such a style of affectionate simplicity as that they shall understand your meaning. Children often do wrong because they don't understand the right at a very early period. Inculcate. That is not inculcate. inculcate upon their minds in the most impressive manner the importance of speaking the truth. Teach them to loathe and detest a lie in every form and shape, and to value the truth above all price, and illustrate in your patience what you teach them. That ought to be probably a 2x4 to the gut of every parent listening, including me. Okay, I mean, because all those little things that we used to do as parents, just kind of, we call them white lies or whatever, just to get our kids to do something. It's a 2x4 to the gut, but we're growing. We're even learning as parents as well. Let's continue. Parents should both speak and act the truth before their children. Let me most earnestly beseech you never to tell your children an untruth. Keep your word to them at any cost, and in order to this, let me bring in another rule of great consequence. If you would successfully govern your children, you must first learn to govern yourselves. Go figure, right? I think that's a really good rule. Something that I certainly didn't do before I had children, learn how to govern myself. I've had to go back to my children and apologize for a lot of things. And I've had to tell them, this is how we're going to work from now on. I would love to have had it perfect before I had children, but that was not. That was not in the, as you might say, in the tea leaves for me. Okay? There must be no thoughtless, reckless ebullitions of temper. I hope that's ebullitions, because I don't know what that word is. I'll look it up here. This will prevent you from making hasty threats or promises, which are pretty sure to be forgotten or broken. Never threaten your child in a moment of passion. Never make a promise without due thought, lest a calmer moment or more deliberate thought more deliberate thought leads you to falsify your word, which would be a misfortune deeply to be deplored. I have sometimes seen a mother who said to her child, "If you do thus and so, I'll chastise you." The child violates the command, and what does the mother do? Adhere to the truth? No, but repeating the prohibition, she says with increased emphasis, "If you do so again, I'll be sure to whip you." Again, the law is broken, for the child is encouraged now to look confidently for the failure of the penalty. And I hear the mother, in an angry tone of voice, exclaim, "Why, William? Is it possible? How dare you disobey me? Upon my word, if I catch you at that again, I'll whip you as sure as you were born." That I will. In a short time, the offense was repeated, and I began to wonder how the good mother would manage this difficulty when, behold, she would not see the offense. Strange infatuation and foolish dissembling. It requires no prophet to predict the influence of all this upon the child in future time. The mother's authority is despised, because confidence is lost in her veracity. Let me then most earnestly and affectionately charge you, as you love yourselves or them, never tell your children any untruth. Never deceive them, and never permit them to utter falsehood to you without applying adequate correction. I regard the love of truth as lying at the foundation of all dignity and excellence of character. And whenever I see the want of it in the young, I cannot avoid auguring evil to them in coming time. When I see a lad tell a lie to escape chastisement, I take it for granted that without a thorough and speedy reformation in his groundworks, there is but little hope for him. Now, my young friends, let me affectionately entreat you never to tell a lie on any occasion. Welcome to the 21st century. Wow. On any occasion, that has been certainly ravaged. I don't know what timeline or time frame that happened in, but to not tell a lie on any occasion, dude, practicing Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or any of those kind of things. Growing up, we did that. Anyway, let's go on. Rather than 50 whippings, then tell one falsehood. I love to see a little boy frank and ingenuous. Never go into bad company, nor get into scrapes. Those are fights, I think. But if you should unfortunately fall into evil, let there be no skulking. Let there be no dodging, no equivocation. Stand square up to the truth like a man and ask forgiveness, and it shall fare better with you in this world and the next. Some children do wrong. They fear detection and tell a falsehood to prevent it. I'm pretty sure that this is a natural reaction. I've been exploring the Genesis situation that Adam and Eve found themselves in after the eating of the tree that they were told not to eat of. In order to avoid detection of a falsehood, they sowed fig leaves. And, this is something that I think we used to talk about many years ago in Sunday school, and even in Bible school, we talked about this as being out of an understanding that they were naked. However, they had been naked since the very beginning, and of course they were experiencing that nakedness right along with God. So since God had seen them naked, and now they realize that they're naked, that makes no sense whatsoever. So my thoughts began to consider, especially after reading the first and second book of Adam and Eve, that there was a different idea going on there, that rather than being ashamed of being naked, they were hiding from God because their appearance had changed, rather than their understanding that they were naked, that it was actually their entire appearance had changed, and that this is the reason they were hiding from God, because the nakedness part and sewing fig leaves to hide their nakedness would not make any sense unless it changed their entire appearance. And in that event, the first and second book of Adam and Eve actually give us an accounting of the fact, and this is oral tradition, by the way, it gives us an accounting of the fact that Adam and Eve, when they were created, or Adam when he was created, and Eve when she was taken from the rib, were light beings. They were solid of flesh, but they had a light about them because they were created in the image of God, and God also has a light about him, and that this light was extinguished and put out, whether it was by the skin or what it was by. I don't know exactly the science of it. I think you would almost have to be there to understand the science of it. But something happened that extinguished that light. And because of it, they sewed fig leaves to hide what was now quite self-evident, in order to try to deceive God. Not only did they, or to avoid detection, not only did they sow the fig leaves, but they also hid. So it was it was more than just, private parts that they were trying to hide. They were trying to hide their full bodies to avoid detection from God. And by the fact that they were avoiding detection, God knew in that moment that, oh, they've eaten from the tree. Because I know what that does. See? So that's just a little side note. No extra funding necessary, thank you. But there's a little side note. Anyway, let's continue. But now they have incurred a double guilt, and conscience makes cowards of them. They are guilty and are constantly suspicious of discovery. This leads to more lying, and the very effort to prevent detection hastens it. And then, how mean and despicable they appear both to themselves and others. But see there that little boy who has been doing wrong. He is called up before his father, who, switch in hand, looking him sternly in the face, says, "My son, did you do this thing?" The culprit's cheeks grow pale. The tear starts in his eye, and he says, "Yes, Father, I did it. I knew it was wrong, and I deserve correction. Yet will I never tell an untruth. I am guilty, yet Father, forgive me. God bless you, my son. You'll make a man some of these days." Does his father whip him? Not he. It is a lack of regarding truth in boyhood which sends out upon the country such swarms of mercantile treating, office-seeking, and office and bank-robbing rogues and scoundrels. Children early imbibe our aversion to truth. Early imbibe an aversion to truth, and a propensity to falsehood, which, if not sufficiently checked in childhood, grows stronger with increasing years. So that he who, when a boy, equivocated or lied to escape a flogging or to win at a game of marbles, or he grows up adopts the creed that a profitable lie is better than an unprofitable truth, and that 'tis only an instance of clever shrewdness to lie when something is to be made of it. Politicians. Send such an one into the world of trade in short yardsticks, deceitful weights, and adulteration of articles come about him, in company with plenty of misrepresentation as to quality of goods, cheapness of price, and the like. Or perhaps he trades heavily, owes an immense debt, fails in business, cheats or compels his creditors into a settlement to an enormous discount, builds a palace, rides in a splendid coach, drinks the best wines, keeps the best stable, and of consequence has plenty of company, looks down, of course, scornfully upon the honest, industrious poor whom he has cheated out of their hard earnings, usually dies a drunkard and makes his home at last with the father of lies. Quite an indictment on that guy. Or he enters the political arena. Kind of knew that was coming. He is a candidate for public favor and seeks elevation with a zeal, which if properly directed, would secure him a seat in heaven. No difficulties appall him. The barriers which a regard to truth and righteousness interposes in the way of success stop him not for a moment. He regards them as mere cobwebs which might stop a straitjacket enthusiast, but cannot affect the moments of a shrewd and able tactician like himself, one whom the fates have ordained to be a great man. His motto, success by any and by all means. He is thus prepared to be a thorough partisan, ready to follow to the death any political party leader who is shrewd enough to notice in time the change of the wind. He is a legislator, swears to maintain inviolate the constitution of the country, takes his seat and never thinks of his constitution afterwards. 1857, folks, or 1847, excuse me. Think about it. They were already talking like this, right? A label in starring capitals might be placed upon his back. To let to the highest bidder. Ouch. You never know where to find him till you ascertain where is the best pay. You cannot trust him with public money because his disregard of truth when a boy has made him a rogue at manhood. If he can rob a bank or a public office of $100,000 and by the aid of steam put himself beyond the probability of the gallows or the state's prison, why, it is a shrewd trick. Or if he can prostitute the influence of official station to the promotion of his own selfish ends, to the great deterrent of the dignity and interest of government, he does it unhesitatingly. For what signify honor and dignity to one who has been a liar from his youth? Or perhaps such an one is gathered into the church, and you think at first that he is really about to do well, but in a little while you will be apt to perceive the stirring of an old leaven, and will find that the church has made but a sorry acquisition. In North Carolina, they used to call these guys demon deacons. It is next to impossible to keep such men straight for any length of time. In short, if a man is wild and dissipated in his habits, it is bad enough. But if he have about him the sternness of truth-loving and truth-telling virtue, there is hope. For there is something on which to build all that is good and noble in human character. But if he has no regard for the truth, there is no dependence on him anywhere, or for anything. Neither God nor man can trust him. Let me therefore once more, and if possible with increased earnest and affection, beseech you, parents, with especial painstaking and solicitude, to teach your children to love the truth and to abhor falsehood as they abhor perdition. And this is the end. Wow. What have we just happened upon here? In 1847, there's a writer of family government who is already talking about the great deception of political office and how they take seat and they forget about the Constitution. 1847. Think about it. That is pre-Civil War. This has been a fight from the very onset of the Constitution. All right, folks. Thank you for listening. If you want to become a patron, we do have openings. We'll put it that way. We have available spots on our Patreon network for as little as $1 a month or suggested $5 a month. You can become a patron and get some extra content that nobody else gets. And you can also choose not to be a patron and just share the videos. Share the videos here, there, and everywhere. Join our YouTube channel and click the bell to get notified every single time that a new video comes up. You could also be on our Facebook page, which is likely where you're watching this video. The Hidalgo Show has a new Facebook page. You can certainly join that page and check out our videos there. Send your friends there to get on the internet with us, so that we can begin to network one house with another to do the things that the Lord has called us to do and restore our society unto Him. This has been a production of the Hidalgo Show with your host Rick Dehijo Binya. I thank you all for coming, and remember, everything we do is all about the blood.